Welcome to Ready to Heal. I'm your host, Betsy Sawyer Galen, and this is the show where we're going to talk about all sorts of alternative medicine. Some you've heard of and some you've never heard of, I'm sure. And today my guest is Janice Solomon. She's got a number of titles, so I'll tell you what she does. She is a homeopathic consultant. She is a yoga instructor. She is a childbirth educator and doula. I think that was it, right? Did I miss anything?
Primarily, that's it.
Okay, good. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in these fields? Today we're going to focus on homeopathy,
right?
Correct? Yeah.
I was really introduced to homeopathy from a friend. Actually, it was someone who I didn't even know. We met. And then she talked to me about it a little bit, and that was about 32 years ago. And it piqued my interest. That's literally how it began.
And why did it pique your interest?
At that point in time, I came from a very medical family, surgeons, allopathic medical family. And I had been living in the Boston area, and I had been learning about macrobiotics, dating myself, this is the 80s. So I'd been learning about macrobiotics and acupuncture and all these other vegetarianism. Frances Moore Lepay had written her famous book. You know, everyone was buzzing in the 80s around it. So I was already kind of interested in something other than what I used to call meat and potatoes world. And so I met this friend of mine in a health food co-op, and so it just sort of fit. You know, it just was like, oh, that's a cool thing. What is that?
And so for people who don't know, and it's homeopathy, and I've had a little homeopathy myself. And what I find interesting is you work with little pellets. They're like little teeny pellets.
Yeah. So a lot of times when people go into a health food store, Whole Foods, they'll see a display of the homeopathic remedies. And the most common company people see is a company called Boron, and they're these little blue tubes. I thought about bringing one, and I forgot.
Right, that's French. That's a French company, right?
Yeah. They're both. They're American and French. And and the pellets are actually little sugar pellets because the remedies themselves are usually in a liquid, a water base. And so to make it easier to be able to transport, those little pellets are what we call medicated, or the liquids put on them, and then that's easier. But the remedies, homeopathic remedies themselves, are actually in a water base, usually. Water, alcohol, something liquid. Yeah.
And so how does that work?
How does it work?
What are they?
Right. So I think probably the first thing to say is just to kind of clear out what homeopathy is.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, yeah,
good.
That's good.
So sometimes it's easy to say what it's not, because a lot of people confuse homeopathy with herbal medicine, which is onto itself a whole practice and modality of health care. Right? Using the whole plant. People know about echinacea and garlic and things, right?
Right.
You go to an herbalist. So that's herbal medicine. Then we have like naturopaths. Naturopaths are trained to use all different kinds of naturopathic things. It could be herbs, could be minerals and vitamins, diet, and they also do use homeopathic remedies, but they're kind of the umbrella. And that's people who go to naturopathic colleges. Bastyr in Washington State. There's one in Connecticut. That's what they're trained. Homeopathy is a science and a medical practice and a healing modality onto itself. Been around since the 1790s, and it's
Where did it originate?
Germany. Samuel Hahnemann was the one who was the founder of homeopathy. So homeopathy is a system of medicine and healing that's based on the idea of like cures like. So, and he's the one who coined the term allopathic medicine, which a lot of people use for conventional Western medicine.
Right.
Allo meaning opposite, homeo meaning similar.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So in our system of medicine, as we see it in this part of the world, we usually think of if someone is depressed, we give them a antidepressant, something that's the opposite. If someone has a bacterial infection, we give them an antibiotic. Right? It's the opposite. It's kind of like the fight against. Whereas on the other side, and Hahnemann is the one who came up with that term, on the other side is homeopathy. So we're looking for something similar, something that actually will help stimulate the system, help encourage your own ability to heal, as opposed to stop it. So, see what I'm saying?
I do, and that reminds me, like, can that be used for allergies?
Exactly. It's a perfect question, right? And when people do allergies or what's the word? They go to an allergist and they're having small amounts introduced to their system to build up some kind of immunity. It's the idea of something similar, for sure. But the difference between something like that and homeopathy is that in homeopathy we're looking at the whole person. So it's really one of the first holistic forms of healthcare. It's how does the mind and the body connect? How are we feeling about something that we're also experiencing physically? Then there's also, you are going to have a different response to allergies than someone else, you know, a sibling or a spouse or a friend.
Right.
So it's a very individualized approach. So we're not giving everybody the same thing. So again, comparing allopathic, homeopathic, in that system, everyone will take Claritin and sort of like the herd experience, most people will have a relief
Right.
of some kind.
Right.
A homeopath is going to look for something very specific to your symptoms.
And so how do they determine what that is?
Well, that's in the conversation. And explain to me what it's like for you. What are your symptoms? What is it like for you when you experience allergies? Like some people get the runny nose and the teary eyes. Other people
Right.
get headaches and foggy.
Right.
Some people are itchy and have skin. You know, everyone has a different
Right.
response.
Well, my son has a bad allergy to walnuts that he still has to be careful with.
Right.
And would that have worked for him, or is that too? It's kind of a dangerous
Right.
allergy, so I don't know if
Right.
would homeopathy work for that.
Well, I've worked with adults and children who have had very specific, very serious egg allergies, things like this, that really can cause anaphylactic shock, stuff like that. So what the idea is, let's see if we can increase the immune response in a healthy way and decrease the threatening part of it. The thing with when we take medicines, meaning allopathic, pharmaceutical medicines, we kind of bypass our immune system, right? We're letting this thing take care of whatever the symptoms are. So our immune system it's kind of like a muscle. So if we stop using it, right? It gets
that
kind of
makes
like
sense.
unused, right?
Yeah, right.
With homeopathy, what we're doing is just introducing a little bit of a substance that has some healing energy to say, hey, come on, immune system, wake back up.
Oh,
And when the immune system gets strong again, then it knows how to deal with an allergy,
oh, interesting.
which is a strong response,
Uh-huh.
right? Our body's going, oh, this is not good. The immune system's telling us, it's giving us a clear message, something's wrong here.
Uh-huh.
So the symptom is actually the way our body's telling us, I'm trying to help you heal. Listen to me, I'm helping you. Whereas the other side, allopathic, says, symptoms bad, get rid of symptom.
Right.
I look at it as a homeopath, tell me, because your body's trying to heal itself. This is why you're getting symptoms.
Right.
It's attempting. We need to help it,
That makes sense.
work with it. So
Right.
that's the homeo, similar. We're going to help it along.
So is this is homeopathy more accepted and performed in Europe, in Germany, for example?
Yeah, in Europe as a whole, India, when you go into a hospital in India, you're offered allopathic, traditional medicine, well, they wouldn't call it traditional there, Ayurvedic, and homeopathy. All is equally represented.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so anybody who has any health condition can have all of those. And in different parts of Europe, South America, really our country is interestingly enough, we have a huge history of homeopathy. All the hospitals in America were homeopathic hospitals. No one knows this.
Oh, no, not at all.
Until about 1919, there was a whole switch when the AMA started growing. So it's a whole political thing. But if you go back and look through the history, they were all homeopathic hospitals.
Oh, that's interesting.
And medical doctors, as we call them, all did health visits, home visits.
Right.
Yeah.
I know they used to do that.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of different substances. Like, how many different substances are there?
Well, it's like this. Everything in nature, a plant, a mineral, anything, has the potential to have healing energy. Because we know enough about energy, right? That we know that everything's made up of molecules, and molecules have electrons, and there's a certain energy that holds those electrons, right? This is becoming common knowledge now. So each thing in nature has a particular type of energy. And if that energy is available to us as humans, it could have healing potential. Now, it could also have the other side, like your son. Something in walnuts creates a disturbance, but there could also be something that could help with that. So everything in nature has the potential to be healing.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of cool.
So, but you treat with the little pellets. So
Right.
There's probably like a
there's a whole
common palette of
there's a
whatever
whole
those-
process of how we take a substance and we make it into a homeopathic remedy. Technical, I don't want to, that's too
Go
much
into
time.
that.
It's called potentization, and people can read about that. But the thing I wanted to go back, because you were asking me to describe a little bit more about homeopathy, right? So this has become my way of explaining it that I think it'll help. When we come into the world when we're born, we have sort of our own energy, our chi. I call it our song, right? So you were born and you have the Betsy song, and I have the Janice song. It's a particular kind of, way that it works.
Right.
As life goes on, things come into our life, right? We're exposed to environmental things, other things happen, and now there's sort of this other song that starts playing. It's kind of like when you're in the car and you get the two songs playing at the same time.
Right.
So you have your song and then you have this other song. And at times the other song gets much louder. And that becomes what you hear all the time. And you kind of forget, ooh, wait, who am I? What's my song? How am I in my healthy, Janice
That's
state?
a good analogy.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So what we're really doing when we experience, your son has the allergy to walnuts, or other people have, is that this other song is playing very loudly, and really what we want to do is quiet this down and let our right song get louder,
right,
and stronger. So we have to kind of, if this, and everything's somewhat energetic, right? So we have to increase this and let this get quieter. So homeopathy is looking at what's that whole song that's been playing very loudly and often annoyingly or distracting or stopping us from really living well.
Right.
What is that picture or template of symptoms, mental, physical, emotional? Match something homeopathic, small amount of something else, to say, okay, body, I'm going to kind of let you go and quiet down so this can come up and be clearer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of ailments, does everything respond well to homeopathy, or are there particular things that people generally use homeopathy for?
Right. So that's a good question, and I think it depends on the population. So as a homeopath, I'm really treating the whole person, not a specific ailment, a specific condition. Because again, that's going to the other way of thinking, right? We have this huge scope of possibilities of things that can help us in our healing, right? Sometimes we need to stop something quickly, and sometimes we need to look at the whole picture.
Right.
So as a general statement, as a homeopath, I want to see who you are as a whole person. Yeah, we're going to look at those specific things on that song that called to you. And so it depends. People come in, someone will initially come to me and say, oh, I've had migraine headaches. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about the migraine headaches. But there's so much more to who they are. That's just one little piece in the puzzle of who they are. So for me to be able to find something that's really going to stimulate that energy to come back up, their healing energy, I can't just look at one specific thing. I need to see the whole person.
I guess what I'm asking, though, I'm asking from the standpoint of, like, say I have, you brought up the idea of headaches.
Yeah.
How do I know that I should do homeopathy as
versus
opposed
something
to,
else? Yeah.
Like, what would be
I would say that here in the States, most people wind up in the homeopath's office when they've tried everything else.
Right. And in most of these alternatives, but somebody's kind of said, "Oh, you've mentioned migraines as one thing. Like, what are some other common ailments that seem to respond well?"
Oh, I mean, I have people who come into my office, whether it's children who are having behavior or learning issues, right? So they're falling into the whole umbrella of that. I have women who are coming who might be struggling with getting pregnant or during their pregnancy or after their birth, healing. Maybe there's issues with babies who get earaches, babies who get fevers. A lot of children are having more allergic responses.
Right.
Allergies, huge. headaches, of course, hormonal issues across the board, because so many people, women, understand that the way that they're going to feel better and be healthier is not to bring more hormones into their body, right?
Right.
So we're looking for a non-hormonal approach. So a lot of the clients who come into my practice, emotional issues, depression, anxiety, sleep disturbances. It doesn't matter what it is, because anything and everything is going to keep coming back to, you know, how are we, how is our whole being? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now you were telling me, when we were talking a little before earlier, you were saying you can use me as the guinea pig.
Yeah.
And just we'll have like a little session.
Sure.
So,
you mentioned to me that, is it about the arthritis?
Yes, of course.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. So you said that you are dealing with arthritis.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So if you were to come into my office as we started talking, I'm writing things down. I can't remember what everybody says. So imagine I have my paper. And also how you describe things will help me. Your actual words will be very specific rather than how I might think of it. That actually helps me understand.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit about your arthritis.
So I was diagnosed with arthritis when I was 23, and that's really opened up my interest in alternative healing.
Sure.
Because I was told I had a 70% chance of living for 5 years.
Wow.
And it was very scary to me, and I started immediately, looking into everything that I could find. So, and over the years, as you can see, I'm still here and doing well. So I learned a lot of things about how to deal with it, but I still, it's a balance that I have to hold. And I have, like my wrist right now, I have issues with that, and I think I was telling you before, I try to follow a diet to help it, but I still, I can get pain and swelling in my wrist.
Tell me about that a little bit more. Describe to me the pain and the swelling, what it actually is like for you.
What it feels like, it's kind of dull. And I don't feel it all the time, but I have inflammation here that kind of gets better and gets worse.
Gets better and gets worse?
Yeah.
Dull. Any other words that you can give to describe what it feels like in the wrist?
It's hot sometimes.
Okay.
What else? Yeah, it restricts the strength in my wrist.
So dull, heat, restricting. How does it affect your life when you feel this and experience this?
Every time I'm aware of it, I think, oh, what can I do about that? And I'm always looking for other things,
Right.
And it seems to be, I think it responds to the weather. I think the dampness kind of makes it worse.
Right. And that is a common thing with arthritic conditions.
Yeah.
Do you experience this in other parts of you? Is it specifically in the joints, or do you notice other places?
Not at this time. When I was initially diagnosed, I had in my knees, I had a lot of issues, breathing issues.
What was happening at your life at that time when it's young to be diagnosed? It
is young, yeah. I had just moved to New York, to Manhattan, and from Ohio. So I think it was something that I really wanted to do, but I think it was a big jump when I got there. Maybe that's kind of was a lot,
Yeah. So I'm just going to stop and just give you, this is what happens, right? So we just talk. And I keep asking you questions. And so there's certain words that you have used that are interesting to me as a homeopath.
Oh.
You mentioned restricted. You mentioned jump. You said, I'm going to always look for something to do. And also your hand gestures were interesting, because our hands and how we express ourselves and our words and our body movements are all reflective of our energetic state. And so then what we would do is we would keep examining this from all different places. So you'd talk to me more about your foods, what this, maybe your dream world, maybe other things in your life that you have interest in, so that it's like painting. I start to paint a picture with you as you describe. So it starts here, right? You said to me, well, what kind of conditions, right? So we start with what is bothering you the most, what's calling loudly, what's playing loudly on that other song.
Right.
But that's only a part of you, right? And then it's interesting to see, so as you describe things to me, remember I said you can get remedies from everything, plants,
Right.
minerals, animals, your language will start to feed into one of those sources.
Oh,
A person who's very sensitive to the weather, you mentioned the weather,
right.
might be more like a plant energy.
Oh, I am
Because-
so like a plant. I notice it all the time. Like
Yeah.
when the sun comes out, all of a sudden, oh, I feel
Right.
so wonderful. When it goes down, whoops.
Yeah.
When it goes down, I'm just, oh, where's my sun?
Yeah.
I am definitely very
Yeah.
plant-like.
Right. And
That's
then
funny.
and then some of us also will have more language that's more like in the animal world, talking a little bit more about how I look compared to someone else, competition, because that's the
Oh.
animal world, right?
Oh, okay.
Minerals have a lot to do with
Oh, that's
structure,
interesting.
right?
Yeah.
Because we need things to create structure, right? A plant needs silica in order for it to grow strong.
Right.
But the truth is, we have all of that because the minerals are in the earth and the plant sucks up the minerals and the animal eats the plant.
Right.
So really, we have all of
Right.
these
It's a
things
circle, yeah.
have a potential to help us. So in the time that we meet in a homeopathic consult, like what's that song? What kind of energy is that song? And what will match it? And so the remedies, we have thousands and thousands of remedies from plants, from minerals, from animals, because everything has potential healing
So
energy.
now I'm going to want to get a session with you. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, like, how long does it take to see
Yeah.
a change?
Yeah.
I know every
No, it's a fair
incident
question.
would be different, obviously, but
It depends on how long it's been in your life. Has it become a chronic? Well, obviously, this is a long time for you, just speaking personally to your situation. How you've dealt with it. How much... so has the way you've dealt with it been a little bit more suppressive? Have you used things like corticosteroids, things like that, which, again, remember we talked about the immune system, kind of go over the immune
Right.
system?
right.
Sounds like you've been really encouraging your body with your food and everything.
I try to take a
Right.
natural approach to everything.
So that it's hard to know the timeline, but often, well, some homeopaths say it's probably pretty accurate for every year of a chronic situation, at least a month or two of care. So if it's 20 years, 30 years, you're talking about some time.
Right.
What I say is when people call me with, like, if you were to call me on the phone and say, Janice, I'm interested in working with you, I would say, let's start with a 6-month amount of time, right? Because we sit together, we start, and homeopathy it's subtler. We're trying to quiet that song. We're trying to encourage our own immune system, our own energy.
Right.
This isn't, you don't want to like plug yourself into and zap yourself, right?
Right.
We have to gently encourage and gently,
Bring it up.
Bring it
Yeah,
up, right.
That makes sense.
It takes time. It takes time. So often I say to people, more for you than for me. Make the commitment that you're going to work for 6 months or, we're going to work together.
Right.
We start with the homeopathic remedy, one remedy at a time, because I'm a classical homeopath, meaning I look for one remedy. I might think something else along the way, but usually one at a time. And we just gently see. And then
Now, can this work in conjunction with somebody who's
Yeah.
seeing a doctor
Yeah.
or doing that? It
Yeah.
has no
Right, and so again, going
counter-
back to what I said before, so this allopathic side, the way that we look at Western medicine, traditional medicine, is more of a material-based, what's happening physically, physiologically, and there's so many things on the other side that are more energetic, homeopathy, Reiki, acupuncture, right? This is more coming from an energetic way. They don't interfere with each other.
And it's also, we're talking about subtle energy as opposed to, the heavy-duty drug. So the subtle energy really doesn't interfere.
No, if anything, what I have found over and over and over, and there's enough documentation. You can go to the National Center for Homeopathy has they have a huge library of information. There's plenty of places to find documentation of when people use homeopathic remedies, their need drops for their medication.
Yeah.
Now, some medications we can't, if you're insulin dependent, not diabetic, you need the insulin. Maybe your system can start to work a little more effectively and the level of amount can shift a little bit. But many people come in taking psychotropic medication for anxiety and depression, and that we can start to bring it down, because as the body heals, as the mind heals, as the energy is more potent for us to work with, then those symptoms quiet down, then we need less medication. So I've had many, many people who have come down allergy medications.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you too if you can share any clients that have had like a profound healing.
Sure.
From
well, I was thinking about allergies. I had someone in my office who had spent most of his adult life with allergy shots and allergy treatments because of asthmatic response to pollen and things like that. And we started working together. We looked at everything as I was demonstrating before. And really within about 3 months, and we were coming into this season when everything's so intense.
Yeah, this is a really tough season.
He wasn't needing his allergy shots. In another few months, he really was allergy free. And it was interesting because once that quieted down, then the things that needed some emotional stuff, that kind of became
more prominent.
Yeah, because that song got quieter, and we were able to see him getting more. He was able to, really not be suffering with the allergies and be able to access his own vitality more for other things. Yeah, so that was great. Children, I mean, so many children, kids with high fevers, the right remedy, the fever drops very quickly. Ear infections. I had one little boy who came in.
That's interesting. So something very acute.
Yes.
You could heal with it.
Yes, very quickly. I had a little boy who came into my practice. I have many children with this kind of situation, repeated ear infections, and looking to perhaps have tubes in the ears, and the parent was wondering if there was something else.
Right.
And I remember that little boy, I think within a month, not only did the ear infection clear up, but that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, so again, remember this idea of the song, right? So when the song is really loud, the symptoms are very clear. And a good homeopathic remedy is found that matches and can really help the body heal. And children are very dynamic. Their energy hasn't been, they're right there.
Right, right.
So it's lovely.
Wow, the time has gone so fast.
I was going to tell you one more, but okay.
Thank you so much, Janice, for being my guest today.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Ready to Heal. This is Betsy Sawyer Galen, wishing you well until the next time.